She's probably been put in there because, according to Donald Trump, she's a 10. You know that's what it is.
There's a moment in television when everything seems to crumble at once, and for millions of viewers across the country, that moment arrived with stunning clarity. You've probably heard the chatter by now. Rumors are flying that a once iconic talk show is on the brink of collapse. But what if I told you the latest blow to this daily panel of so-called empowered voices came from someone who never even stepped onto their stage? Karoline Leavitt, a young White House press secretary with a knack for stirring the pot, just turned this beloved show upside down. Her words didn't just spark a little tension. They sent one of the most opinionated panels on television into a tailspin so severe that insiders are whispering about abrupt departures and possible cancellations. If that sounds too wild to believe, buckle up, because there's much more to this tangled web of politics, television, and power plays than most people realize. Before we dive into the meltdown, let's set the scene. Once celebrated for its diverse lineup of hosts who tackled pressing issues with wit and candor, The View has been under scrutiny for a while now. Accusations of hypocrisy and out-of-touch commentary have circulated for years. While the show has always thrived on controversy, some might say that's the point, the tension lately has been off the charts. And when Joy Behar and Whoopi Goldberg decided to aim at Karoline, a 20-something they believed was little more than a mouthpiece, they got far more than they bargained for. In this script, we're looking at how one conversation exploded into something that might end one of daytime TV's longest-running talk shows. We'll explore the catalyst that sparked the meltdown, the backlash that caught everyone off guard, and the near-impossible fallout that left The View's producers scrambling. By the end, you'll understand why people can't stop talking about Karoline's fiery comeback, what it means for the show's future, and why it might send shockwaves through mainstream media for years. So keep watching, because this is only the beginning. Each piece of the puzzle builds on the last, and the deeper you go, the more explosive the revelations become. For years, The View has branded itself as a platform where women from different backgrounds can debate the hottest topics in politics, entertainment, and social issues. The show prides itself on representing a range of viewpoints. But let's be honest, the show leans heavily into certain ideologies. Critics argue that the so-called wide range of perspectives has shrunk considerably, especially regarding hostile voices. Those cracks became evident in subtle ways. Eye rolls here, dismissive comments there, and a growing perception that certain viewpoints weren't welcome unless delivered in a meek, almost apologetic tone. Viewers who disagreed with the majority opinion on the panel began tuning out. Others stuck around for the fireworks, waiting to see which guest or co-host might be on the chopping block daily. The show, however, maintained a loyal fan base. Many watchers are drawn to The View's personalities, especially Joy Behar and Whoopi Goldberg, who have been there for what feels like forever. Sunny Hostin and other rotating co-hosts add their own flair, but the primary draw has always been that signature blend of wit, laughter, and pointed political commentary. Yet behind the scenes, there were murmurs that not all was well. Executives were reportedly concerned about plummeting ratings and a possible disconnect with younger audiences. Into this environment stepped Karoline Leavitt, a woman who many feel personifies the new wave of thoughtful, young, outspoken, and entirely unafraid of labels. Unlike some who try to soften their stances for mainstream acceptance, Karoline thrives on confrontation. She's not out to make friends with daytime talk hosts. She's here to shake the table. And that's precisely what she did. From the start, Joy Behar singled her out in remarkably personal ways. Rather than debating Karoline's points, Joy made comments about Karoline's appearance and insinuated that her career might be tied to the fact that certain powerful men found her visually appealing. The irony? This tactic came from someone who often champions the idea that women shouldn't be judged by their looks. Meanwhile, Whoopi Goldberg questioned Karoline's understanding of her place in a modern progressive society, remarking that without wokeness, Karoline wouldn't even sit at the table. Within hours of Joy Behar's insinuations, Karoline posted a video calling out each host by name. She accused them of everything from ageism and sexism to outright hypocrisy. She highlighted how The View claims to be a beacon of female empowerment, yet frequently tears down women based on appearance or personal beliefs. but it was her mention of elitism that struck the most significant nerve. They don't want strong women who think for themselves. They want you to agree with their narrative, or they'll brand you as ignorant, unqualified, or just a pretty face. Well, I refuse to play that game. That line, in particular, traveled far. People who'd never heard of Karoline before suddenly knew her name. Many commentators and mainstream outlets picked up the story. Panel discussions on cable news debated whether Karoline had a point about The View's bias. Soon, hashtag cancel the View started trending alongside hashtag Karoline claps back. It was the kind of social media storm The View had seen before, but it felt different this time. Why? Because it appeared that a younger audience resonated with Karoline's frustration. Many younger viewers, and even some moderate viewers, expressed relief at finally seeing someone call out what they perceived as one-sided bullying on live television. Detractors who typically side with The View hosts found themselves in an awkward position, asking whether Joy's comment was in fact too personal and uncalled for. At first, producers tried to spin the story. A few anonymous sources reportedly told media outlets that The View hosts were merely joking and that Karoline was taking it out of context. But that explanation fell flat. The video clip circulated broadly, and when people watched it themselves, the joke didn't feel playful. It felt dismissive. Suddenly, The View was caught in a narrative they couldn't fully control. And that was only the beginning of their troubles. As we move into the next phase, we'll see how this single spark turned into a full-blown forest fire, threatening the very structure of a show that, for decades, managed to navigate controversy with relative ease. Controversy is nothing new to The View, but the magnitude of this public outcry blindsided both the hosts and the network. Social media platforms erupted in debates pitting Karoline's defenders against The View's longtime fans. Memes labeling Joy Behar as joyless and Whoopi as out of touch flooded Twitter and TikTok. Even people who usually roll their eyes at political talk shows found themselves engrossed in the drama. Behind the scenes, ABC executives were reportedly furious. A flurry of emergency meetings took place, focusing on damage control. Leaks from staffers hinted that higher-ups were particularly alarmed by how quickly the controversy escalated. The demographic that The View was hemorrhaging, young adults, was precisely the one Karoline appealed to with her fiery comeback. Panic set in when people realized that the show's most loyal audience, longtime viewers, might not be enough to sustain ratings if younger audiences continued to drift away. Sponsors also began taking notice. While corporate partners often expect some level of political bickering on talk shows, none of them want to be associated with personal attacks that appear to undermine women for the very qualities these brands claim to champion: talent, independence, and professionalism. Suddenly, brand managers were on the phone asking pointed questions about how The View planned to handle this crisis. If the network and the show couldn't provide a satisfactory answer, there was a very real possibility of ad placements being pulled. Just when it seemed like things couldn't get worse, Joy Behar decided to double down. In a subsequent episode, she addressed the controversy in a way that felt dismissive to many viewers. She joked about being labeled a bad feminist and sarcastically invited Karoline to come back on the show anytime if she wanted to debate like a grown-up. This response poured fuel on an already raging fire. People who'd previously given Joy the benefit of the doubt felt that she had crossed a line from opinionated to downright condescending. Whoopi tried to intervene, calling for a sense of perspective and reminding viewers that The View had always been about lively debate, but her statement came off as vague. Whoopi's attempt to defuse the situation fell flat without addressing the core issue, mocking Karoline based on her appearance and perceived lack of credentials. The segment ended with lukewarm applause from the studio audience, many of whom seemed unsure how to react. Meanwhile, Karoline's star was on the rise. She was invited on various news programs, friendly outlets eager to give her more airtime, but also mainstream shows hoping she'd dish more dirt about The View. The network that airs The View, ABC, appeared unable to regain control of the narrative. Instead of reversing the damage, every new statement from the hosts only gave Karoline more ammunition. Through all this, watchers on YouTube, Twitter, and beyond were left wondering, could the drama actually spell the end of The View? It's a fair question, given that no show can survive without advertisers and no network wants to back a sinking ship. The intrigue was only growing, and the next stage was about to push the tension to a breaking point. Once The View's public relations crisis hit its boiling point, everyone waited to see whether Karoline would go quiet or come back for more. She chose the latter, and her timing was impeccable. With the online conversation at a fever pitch, Karoline released a follow-up statement, this time in a polished 3-minute video that was part rebuttal, part rallying cry. She started by calling out what she saw as the show's repetitive script, pointing out that the hosts regularly recycled the same put-downs against rival figures. She cited examples of other contending women who had been belittled on the show, weaving in clips of Joy or Whoopi insulting them. Then Karoline turned the spotlight on her own experience. I'm supposed to believe that these women are all about empowerment, but when I succeed, they call me a token hire and question my capabilities. When I speak my mind, they say I'm privileged for even having a voice. The truth is, they don't want me at the table unless I parrot their talking points. The zinger that resonated most, however, centered on hypocrisy. Karoline drew attention to the fact that The View constantly advocated for women to lift each other up, yet tore her down in a way that reduced her achievements to superficial qualities. The short video ended with a simple challenge. If The View truly stands for every woman, then stop underestimating women who don't share your worldview. That line hit home. Even people who rarely watch The View felt compelled to weigh in. The video exploded on social media, racking up thousands of shares within hours and sparking debates in comment sections everywhere. Political commentators labeled Karoline's takedown a masterclass in flipping the script, praising her ability to turn the host's negativity into a talking point about true female empowerment. Meanwhile, inside ABC, staffers scrambled to control the narrative. The meltdown had gone from a public spat to a potential brand catastrophe. Some sources whispered that Joy Behar and even Whoopi Goldberg might face internal reviews for their handling of the situation. Others insisted that the show's format would have to adapt or risk alienating an entire generation of viewers who see Karoline's takedown as a justified stance against media gatekeeping. At the same time, Karoline's supporters urged her to keep the pressure on. Many influencers rallied behind her, amplifying her message and encouraging fans to boycott The View's advertisers. Lists of those advertisers circulated online, urging people to contact them and voice their disapproval. Suddenly, the show's survival felt like it rested on how they would handle Karoline's challenge. But if viewers expected The View to apologize or invite Karoline for a balanced discussion, they were sorely mistaken. Instead, the co-hosts largely avoided direct mention of Karoline's second video. A brief segment alluded to recent controversies, but the conversation quickly pivoted to other headlines of the day. It was as if the show tried to pretend the storm would blow over, only it didn't. Instead, the story continued to spread, and the silence from the panel only made them look more culpable in the eyes of critics. This is the power of social media in modern controversies. Ignoring a viral challenge no longer makes it fade away. If anything, it intensifies the attention. People start asking why a show that thrives on debate suddenly doesn't want to engage. And that's exactly what led to even wilder speculation about what might happen next. With the show reeling, rumors about its future began to swirl in the entertainment world. Insiders claimed that ABC executives held marathon meetings discussing drastic measures. While The View had weathered countless controversies in the past, think of all the co-host exits and fiery on-air arguments, this time felt different. The blow-up with Karoline struck at the very heart of the show's brand, female solidarity. Leaked reports hinted that advertisers were pulling out or re-evaluating their contracts. Some sponsors, known for championing women's causes, found themselves in an uncomfortable position. On one hand, they supported The View for its reputation as a female-driven platform. On the other, the personal nature of the attacks against Karoline seemed contradictory to their marketing messages. The mood on set reportedly shifted from confident banter to tense caution. Staffers were asked not to speak to the press. Morale among junior producers, who often admired The View's outspoken hosts, took a nosedive. A few even questioned the direction of the show, saying it had lost the spark that once made it special. The irony was palpable. What was supposed to be a straightforward takedown of a prominent figure backfired so dramatically that the entire show looked vulnerable. Meanwhile, Karoline kept her momentum going. She appeared on podcasts and YouTube channels, reiterating her stance that The View's hosts had exposed their own bias by mocking her appearance and questioning her qualifications. Her message was simple and potent. Powerful media gatekeepers quickly silence or belittle anyone who deviates from their script. She claimed that women in media should stand united, not tear each other down, especially over superficial factors like looks. This line of argument resonated with people who had felt dismissed by mainstream outlets. Regardless of their political leanings, many viewers acknowledged that Karoline made a fair point about the double standard for women with differing views. Polls surfaced on social media asking if The View owed Karoline an apology. A surprising number of self-identified moderate or even liberal respondents said yes. The controversy transcended typical right versus left lines, evolving into a broader conversation about respect and honesty in the media. As all of this played out, Whoopi Goldberg tried to steer the show back on course, occasionally referencing the importance of open dialogue. But viewers sensed her restraint. Joy Behar continued with her usual humor, though her jokes about the situation landed less effectively. Sunny Hostin, known for her legal background, kept a low profile and was perhaps wary of adding more fuel to the fire. The show's producers seemed to be betting on time, dulling the outrage. But the internet rarely forgets, and the chatter online refused to subside. Some sources even mentioned that ABC might consider bringing in a prominent woman with alternative viewpoints as a rotating guest host to balance the panel and rebuild credibility. But the idea raised a huge question. If The View truly believes in diverse perspectives, why hadn't they done so before? Was it simply a performative move to stop the bleeding? For many people tuned into the drama, this felt like an obvious attempt at damage control, and it only reinforced Karoline's argument that The View was more about controlling a narrative than fostering genuine diversity of thought. By now, speculation was running wild. Could The View be canceled over this? While the notion might have seemed unthinkable at one time, the conversation took on a life of its own. After all, no show is immune to viewer discontent, especially in the current media landscape. The rise of streaming platforms and independent content creators means viewers can turn off daytime TV and find their entertainment elsewhere, especially if they're fed up with what they perceive as double standards. Online petitions began circulating, calling for Joy Behar's removal or an overhaul of the show's format. Others demanded that Karoline be invited on air to defend herself in person. The View's producers remained tight-lipped, releasing only generic statements about respecting a variety of perspectives. That vague language did little to quell the storm. Ratings became the next big question. Early reports indicated a drop in viewership from the previous month, though it was too soon to tell if the controversy alone caused it. Yet the negative headlines undoubtedly played a role. People who used to watch casually might have been turned off by the personal attacks, finding them beneath To make matters worse, competing talk shows seized the moment. Some hosts on rival programs weighed in, criticizing The View's handling of Karoline. A few joked that they'd happily invite Karoline for a more respectful debate. In the fast-paced world of daytime television, one show's downfall can be another's gain. Whether or not ABC executives worried about the competition, they had enough internal trouble to deal with without worrying about external rivals. Then came the most significant leak of all. A source claiming to be close to ABC's top brass revealed that multiple exit strategies were being considered, including an option where The View would undergo a complete rebranding, possibly with a new name and fresh faces. The nuclear option? Cancel it altogether by the next scheduling season. While these rumors remain unconfirmed, they even surfaced, showing how badly the meltdown rocked the network. At this point, there's a sense that the end game is near. Could The View patch things up and regain its footing, or are we witnessing the slow-motion demise of a daytime staple? Karoline, for her part, might have unknowingly triggered a reckoning within mainstream media. She's become a symbol of what happens when someone outside the usual circles refuses to accept the roles assigned to them. In a world where narratives are carefully curated, one person can still uproot the status quo. Here we are at the edge of what could be a massive shakeup in daytime television. A show that once prided itself on amplifying female voices is now mired in controversy for undercutting a young woman in a way many see as antithetical to its stated values. Will The View survive the onslaught, or will it become a cautionary tale of what happens when a show's public persona no longer aligns with its on-air behavior? Karoline Leavitt's story is far from over, and her clash with The View might be the catalyst that propels her influence to the next level. Regardless of whether you agree with her politics, it's hard to deny that she sparked a needed conversation about media gatekeeping and the importance of genuine diversity of thought in particular. In an era where so many voices compete for attention, it's fascinating to see how quickly one person can turn the tables when they refuse to be dismissed. Now, the question I pose is, did The View overstep, or was Karoline playing the victim card? Was this an overreaction by the network and the hosts, or did the personal nature of Joy Behar's comments justify the backlash? Ultimately, the court of public opinion remains divided. Some believe The View is simply facing consequences for years of thinly veiled bias, while others think Karoline is capitalizing on a moment in the spotlight. Whichever angle you take, it's clear that a significant shift has occurred, and it's forcing talk shows everywhere to think twice before they wade into personal attacks. Where do we go from here? That's up to the audience. Viewers hold more power than ever. If enough people demand accountability, the show's producers may have to change course or exit the stage left. If fans stay loyal and tune in for the drama, The View may ride this wave again, emerging bruised but intact. For now, all we can do is watch and see whether Karoline's bombshell marks the beginning of a new era in daytime television or the end of one. Give us your thoughts below. Has The View finally gone too far this time? Will ABC make drastic changes, or will the show get canceled outright? And how do you feel about Karoline's fiery response? Was it justified, or was it just another example of media theatrics? Let us know what you think, and be sure to like and subscribe so you don't miss the next chapter in this unfolding story. If there's one thing we know for sure, this controversy isn't going away anytime soon. Stay tuned, because the next twist might be the most explosive one yet.